The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Stanton. And today's hearing is more than just about FEMA reform. It's about shifting the center of gravity away from bloated federal bureaucracy and toward capable states that are closest to the people that they serve. In Utah, we know how to do more with less. We invest wisely and build strong partnerships between the state and local governments. That same principle, clear, locally led coordination between state and local governments, should guide how we approach emergency management across the country. Whether it's wildfires in California, hurricanes in the southeast, or earthquakes and flooding risks in Utah, we must ensure the federal government is a reliable partner, not a bureaucratic bottleneck. FEMA should be empowering states and counties, not burying them under red tape. When agencies grow too large and too distant from the people they serve, they lose the ability to act with urgency, efficiency, or local understanding. Emergency management is just one example, but it's a critical one. I support President Trump's executive order establishing the FEMA Review Council. We need that top-to-bottom review, and I look forward to working with the committee to play a leading role in it. I had a few questions for, we'll start with Mr. Curie and Mr. Guthrie. We've talked about block grants, and both of you have mentioned that in your testimonies. Can you give me some more specifics about if we were to do something like that? How would you do that without fraud, waste, and abuse, but also cut the red tape and allow that money to be used immediately? And start with you, Mr. Curie.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's a misconception that with a block grant that there's no oversight, that you appropriate the money, Congress appropriates the money, and they write a check to the state and it's done. That's not how it works. There is most block grants, the state and the federal government work together to develop very specific rules and requirements and controls and audit processes. It's just more of the money is delivered up front. So it's going to take some time if you develop this into a block grant to train and build the state's capacities. Some states like Florida probably is going to be very quick. Other states it's not. Other communities it's not. And so it's possible to do this, but I also think this needs to be very different than other block grants that we've created before.
Thank you. Mr. Guthrie?
Thank you for the question, and it somewhat goes to the previous Congresswoman's question as well. I'll give you two examples of where we can really speed this up. Number one, environmental historical preservation. In the emergency management community, I have several state directors sitting behind me. That is where projects go to die. It could take 4 to 6 years to get that done. Every state has an environmental and historical preservation officer. Why are we duplicating effort on that? Let the state do their job. Let us document the file and put that as a part of the file. We can speed that process up by at least 90% savings in time. I'll give you another example. The Consolidated Resource Center. I would move to abolish the Consolidated Resource Center. Again, that is where people send us RFIs, numerous RFIs, hundreds of RFIs, requests for information. Again, the state is responsible for managing its grant, whether it's a block grant or if it's a traditional grant. We do that. But the number of RFIs that come out, and one of our individuals from Alabama talked about, he literally had to give some type of minute piece of information in a debris removal claim. That's insane. So those are two examples of where that's already happening at the state level to document those state actions. It should be a part of the file, and we move on.
Thank you for those suggestions. And Mr. Garcia, if I could ask you a question about the counties, and I agree with the potency of counties, and I think that was a big part of your statement. The question that I had is the hierarchy that you would consider associated with counties, because the governor is generally in charge of the state. The idea of the federal government, for example, giving grants to a county directly and subverting the role of the governor, I'm curious how you would, if you were to see federal funds flowing, would you have those funds go directly to counties, or would you have them go to the governor and subsequently to the counties? What is your thought about that?
Well, some counties have capacity, like Harris County. We're very fortunate in that regard, but not everybody does. Right. And so we absolutely need to find ways to work with both entities where you work through the states in some regards. But for example, in places like Oregon. Oregon is a state that has experienced some delays in reimbursements for their recovery process, but places like Hamilton County has had to suspend current bids because they're just struggling with some of that process. But I think you find ways to work both with the counties and the states who have capacity and some who struggle with it.
Thank you very much for that answer. Mr. Chair, I'm committed to helping bring common sense and efficiency to this program. It's an essential program, but I think there's better ways that we can do it. And thank you to the witnesses for their willingness to come and educate us about this. With that, I yield back.